Hello and welcome back to an awesome unwrapping tutorial with Jason and Benoit. Hello,
Hello.
Benoit.
Hello.
How's it going, buddy?
Pretty well, and you?
Oh, fantastic. All right, so look, we're going to be doing a little bit of unwrapping today. I see you already have your toolbox ready to go. So
I
I'm going to
do.
make a quick one using the
Somebody's been
multi-cut
slacking
tool.
off.
I'm sorry?
Somebody's been slacking off.
You know me. All right, so just using the unwrap tool very quickly here to make essentially the same thing you did. Hate when I do that. See, that's why I shouldn't have used the multi-cut tool there first. I'm an idiot. Alright. So I'm happy I made a mistake, so I can actually show you what not to do. Totally on purpose. Alright. Here's the edge loop. I'll flatten that down, right, so it's nice and straight. I'll use the bevel tool, add a segment, lower the fraction, and grab this and shrink it in a bit, which is obviously going to mess up these here, so I'm just going to grab those very quickly and fix those up. Would you have done the same thing, Ben, or did you do it differently when you did yours?
The only difference is I only modeled half and made my modifications, duplicated it over, merged the vertices in the middle, and deleted the seam. That's it.
Oh, okay, for the metal bracket part.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool. All right, nice. Good idea. All right, harden edges, and there we go. All right, we got the same thing.
Yay.
So, okay, one UV unwrapping. What tools do you stick to? Which tools do you use?
Planar mapping is probably the most used for pretty much anything I do, even characters or pretty much anything. I do use cylindrical mapping once in a while, but most of the time I use planar mapping. That's why I have it binded to my shelf up here, so it's easy for me to just bring the menu up and just select the faces that I need and choose the options that are needed for a specific angle.
Nice. Yeah, I always use the planner as well. Cylindrical every now and again, and then rarely the automatic unwrap. And unfold I use very often as well. So
Yeah,
I stick to
same
these
for me.
four.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah. All right, cool. Okay, so, I think if I would start this, I would probably start by unwrapping the top and bottom at the same time. Of course, it would
Yeah.
depend on the output, right?
Yeah, it's always trying to think what the prop or character you're doing. You're trying to find out what is it used for, if it's at a distance or if it's not. If it's at a distance, you can probably make use of overlapping UVs, so you don't have to texture the whole thing twice or three times. So
Yep.
you want to make sure that you can think about what is the output of your prop. But for this one, I would do exactly what you did.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I would go to right-click face mode. Now, one way of doing it would be to select the entire top, but if we do that, that means that these metal bars are going to be adjacent to these faces, which would probably be wood, right? So
Yep.
I wouldn't want to select the metal bars and just start with these faces, right? You do the same thing?
Yep.
All right, awesome. So we're going to do it like this. And now we're going to go to UV, planner, and we're going to go to the option box. And inside the option box, we're going to go bounding box, y-axis. Do you use the best plane very often? I find that I use the best plane when I'm using irregular models where the angle is going to be like 45 degrees by 35 along the x-axis. Then I'll use it, but for planar mapping, like, what do you use?
I mostly use bounding box. I rarely use best planes. The
Okay.
last time I used it, I can't even remember. So
All right, nice. So, okay, one of the things I was telling the students yesterday is that one of the ways to think about which axis to project from is looking at the arrow. The arrow that would hit the face is the axis you want to pick, right? So right
yeah,
now we're going
uh,
along
I
the y-axis.
yeah I normally use the widget at the bottom
Same
bottom
here.
left to
Yeah.
help you identify what axis is which. Obviously, there's the color. Each axis is color coded, so eventually you'll understand that the blue is the Z axis, X is the
Red.
red one, and green is the Y.
Yeah. The
So,
thing
but
I
you can
think some
always,
students forget though is that it changes yellow when you have one selected.
yeah, when it's highlighted, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's why I love to just double check with the widget at the bottom just to see where, like what axis is which.
Yeah. So on the screen right now that we're recording, we're not actually seeing the widget. So I'm just going to move my screen so we can actually see
Oh,
bottom
okay.
left.
Yeah,
We can actually
no
see
problem.
the YXZ widget there.
Yep.
All right, awesome. Okay, so we're going to do a Y-axis and we're going to click apply, which is going to show us this awesome little icon. And when we actually open up our UV editor up here from in the shell, and now we're going to see this, right? And then we can actually move it, or using the arrow, and move it out of the way. So I think we do this the same, right? Where every time we unwrap something, we'll move it out of the main box just so we know
Yeah.
what's left, right?
Well, it's easier. First of all, yeah, it's for to know what is left to be UV'd, but at the same time, it's easier for you to select afterwards instead of trying to manually select in the middle and then zooming in and removing selection. You just want to move it over, so it's easier to just marquee tool everything that you
Keep
need.
everything clean.
Yep.
Yes, I completely agree. All right, awesome. So once you've done the top, of course, then you just repeat the same process, front and back. And then this time it's going to be along the Z-axis, right? And of course, again, just move it out of the way. Now, as I'm moving everything out of the way, I'm just going arbitrarily, right? So I'm just trying to make them approximately the same size as the others. I'm not spending too much time on trying to make it perfect at this point, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Just make sure that, we're on the same page here. You
We
know me,
are.
I love slacking off all the time, so. All right, so the next one would be on the X-axis, which is going to be the sides. And then we can move that out of the way as well. There you go. And the final steps would actually just be of following the same process for the metal bars, right?
Yep.
Top and
Essentially, you
bottom.
can do that. I love to select these sides as well because you're trying to think of what the texture is going to be, and for this, I would love to have all the metal things together, so I could easily add. Let's say there was a scratch or a notch inside the texture on the corner. It's
Yep.
easy for me to just if they're UV together. It's easy for me to just draw it on in Photoshop, and by doing that, you're not going to see
There's not going to
this
be a seam there.
exactly.
Yeah, well, do you want to show us how you would do that part then?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So essentially, I'll be selecting these and going from the side, and I'm just going to do a UV planar mapping from the Y. So essentially, it's the same sort of method, but I'm including the sides as well. So I'm going to go, oh, I forgot to do the bottom at the same time. So I'm just going to reselect them and do another planar with the top selected as well.
Perfect. Can you move your UV editor to the center of the screen just so we can actually see?
Oh,
Okay,
there we
perfect.
go.
Yes.
So yeah. So this is my sides, and I'll be doing the exact same thing.
But actually, if we just look into this, I'm just curious. So what are you going to do with these side faces? Because right now we're not seeing them, right?
Yeah,
They're just
exactly. Well,
edge width.
it's planar from the top. So right now they're just like right where the seam is, like right where this axis is. So if I
Yeah.
select just one UV and move that, you'll see something weird with your UV.
So how
So what
would
I
you
normally
fix it then?
it's not necessarily a fix. Well, it's just a tool that I normally use for my unwrapping. Is I select the desired face that I want to sort of smooth out. Just use the tool, smooth UV tool, and then the unfold and relax. I just use unfold, left click and hold, and then just drag it across.
That's genius. I never use that.
So that's gonna unfold it for you, basically. So it's the unfold only works with one like sort of UV shell at a time. So I would have to repeat that for the other ones as well. So under the smooth tool, I just keep on doing that, and it's gonna just you keep doing the unfold until it starts not changing anything, and then I could just go ahead and place them over top each other afterwards. So you can eyeball it, or you can also select the UV, hold down V to snap, and just move it across to the desired UV you want to snap it to. So now you know they're going to be exactly over top each other.
Yeah. So again, that's one of the great tricks, right, in 3D when you're holding X to snap to the grid, C to the curve, and V to snap to vertices or UVs.
Yep.
Yeah, so look, I just did a quick test too. So I rarely use the smooth tool, or yeah, the smooth tool that you just used. So
Yep.
I just tested to see if the other way that I used would have worked as well, and it does. So I'm just gonna quickly show you. If I do this, right, same step as you, and then bring it in, you can actually select both and just select the unfold option. And this is actually going to work as well, but you can do it on more than one at a time.
Yeah,
But
cool.
you can see I forgot to face there.
Forgot one face, yeah.
But see, look, that's awesome. We both learned. Now we're making it better.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's at this point, it's more of your preference, right?
Oh yeah, but we're always, you know how we're always trying to go like less clicks, trying to make it faster.
Yeah.
So right now you showed me an awesome tool by using the unfold, but you had to do it one at a time. Now if you actually use the polygon unfold option, now we can do it all at a time.
Yeah.
Right? So right now I have the top and bottom, and if I go y-axis apply, then we can actually go polygon unfold, and it'll actually do all 4 of them
Yeah,
one shot.
Yeah.
There you go. Less clicks.
Always less clicks.
Less clicks. That's what I was telling some of the students in class. It's funny, I found myself sometime at night actually counting clicks on how I could make something faster.
You're counting clicks. That's new.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. We're such geeks. Okay. Oh, something else that some of the students might not already know, but I think they should, is how we can select the the faces here, and then if you, I'm realizing that I have everything up and hiding my faces, but yeah, if you have everything selected like this, then you can actually shift select the bigger than, and then it's going to select the next faces, right?
Yeah.
So right now I have the top and bottom, but that's an easy unselect, so at least I'll have all of those selections in one shot. Oh, I got some more selection here. All right, and then so we're just going to repeat the same process for that, right? So go on the planar mapping along the z-axis this time, click apply, right? And then check with the UV unwrap. And so I'm going to follow our new way of doing this, clicking on fold, and then, well, bam! So everything is going to be a little crooked here, but the one way to figure out if everything is good is to turn on your checkerboard, right? So we're using I noticed this, by the way, in the new version of 2017 of Maya, they don't actually have the color checkerboard anymore. It's actually black and white. They reverted to the old way.
So which one, sorry?
The new version of Maya 2017.
Yeah.
Doesn't use the color checkerboard anymore. It's all black and white.
Hmm.
Which is weird because I love that color one. It helps us locate which quadrant it is really quickly.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, all right. So see, the way I did it, I'm realizing I'm having a little bit of stretching here in my faces because when I did the unfold, it did them slightly crooked.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I'll quickly fix it, but then, I might not want to use the unfold then if it's going to create this type of topology or UV map.
Yeah.
But in our version, it's actually up here, right? It's the align selected UVs to minimum U value. So when you click this, then everything is going to be aligned along that line.
Yep.
Okay? So I'm just going to fix one just to give them an idea. In the new version of Maya 2017, it's actually on the right side. You're going to have to play around. I wish I had it installed. It would have been nice if one of us had it so we can actually show the differences between the two. But hey, it happens. All right, so I'm just going to select these and just finish this off very quickly. All right, and there you go. So that's what I would do and repeat the process all across. Right. All right. So in class, I was telling them that, like you mentioned at the beginning, it always depends what the prop is going to be and where it's going to be, right?
Yep.
So in this case, I was figuring like this prop is going to be a small prop and it's going to be hidden somewhere in a corner. So, like the player would never actually get really up close. It would never be highly detailed. So considering that, this little crease in the middle would be very small and would probably be like I don't know. If it was a metal crate, it would be like the black rubber. If it was just wood, it'd be very dark, right?
Yep.
So what I was thinking of doing, and again, it's to show a different process, because right now we've actually covered on how to unwrap everything. So if there's something that's not going to be seen, then there's no point in wasting valuable UV real estate, right? So if you want to, you can actually just scale everything down and move it into a corner somewhere, right?
Yeah, well, I use the whole map to my advantage, right? You want to be using everything in your power. Exactly. You want to maximize. You want to be able to see what you're doing, but positioning them inside this just little square here is just the last step.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the main quadrant, right? We can actually tell because it's 0 to 1 in the positive. In the new version of Maya 2017, the checker or the grid actually continues to infinite all across. So it's not as clean as this, whereas this one is pretty easy because we're actually seeing everything. But anyways, it's still pretty simple. So
Yep.
the other thing I was mentioning in class, I think that's worth noting is that if you turn on the checkerboard, right, and you're looking at your 3D piece, what you're trying to do is make sure that all of the squares, all of the checkerboard across the
Yep.
piece is approximately the same size. And of course, the reason for that is that the squares will represent the DPI essentially, right? So you
Hmm.
wouldn't want like the top of your chest to be in like full 4K beauty and then the rails to be in like 540 standard definition, right?
Hmm.
So that's why we try to match the squares. And the other thing too is that we're trying to make sure that there's no stretching in the squares. Because if there's
Yep.
stretching in the squares, there'll be stretching on your textures.
Exactly. Then you
Okay,
would
so
start to have to texture in a crooked way, and that's not what you want to start doing.
textures can be a challenge on their own, trying to figure out how to draw wood texture at a weird angle on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a pain in the ass. Okay, so and then yeah, last step, like you said, is just trying to grab everything and then just making it work, right? Trying to fit in the middle. So you can
Yeah.
grab everything and then scale it down. Of course, I think one of the tricks is that you want to make sure that all of the UVs you move together, you scale together. Because if you
Yep.
grab just like the metal bars and scale those smaller, then you're having the same issue as earlier, where these are going to have smaller resolution than the rest of the crate.
Exactly. Now you need to think about everything that you're doing one step at a time, making sure that all the sizes make sense. Because you want to make sure that the things that will be bigger on the prop has a bigger real estate within the square here for the texture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So right now, so everything is fitting on my screen. One of the things that we always try to make sure is that we actually have some bleed space. So when we look at our faces, right now these two edges on mine would be touching, and we don't want that. And
Yep.
one of the main reasons for that is that, well, first of all, it'll be just that much harder to paint, right? Even if you do create masks or marquees inside of Photoshop, you're gonna have to be like super precise, right? So leaving you that little bit of space is gonna help out. Of course, you want to try and maximize it, so of course you want to try and keep that as small as possible. But the worst parts would be trying to have a metal texture next to a wood texture, right?
Yep.
Because when it's metal next to metal, it's not too bad that you have some metal overbleed because it's going to be the same thing.
Yep.
But when it's two different materials, then that's not going to be good. And the second reason why you want to be careful for this is that in a game engine, when the boss is going to be close to the camera, it's actually going to be using the full size of the map. So it would be, let's say, a 1024 map. But then the further away it is from the screen, it's going to start lowering the resolution. So going down to 512 or 256. And once it gets to 256, while those 10 pixels it had separating your metal from wood, well, it's going to shrink down to 5, which means 2 are going to be gray, 2 are going to be brown. The one in the middle is going to be a mix between gray and brown, right?
Yep.
So now you're going to have this offset color, which is going to look weird at a distance on that crate. So that's why having that little padding is going to help out a lot, especially in those type of situations.
Hmm.
So there you go. Of course, I think, like mine's pretty much all place. Of course, I skipped some step because I'm trying to make it quick here to make it look decent so we can get to the next step.
Yep.
But of course, I could spend some more time and try to really maximize the UV space just by scaling everything up a little bit and try to, again, maximize it, right? So we can
Yeah.
have the highest possible quality on our textures. So for now, I think for this exercise, this is going to be good, right?
Yep.
You're going to be finishing this up, placing everything in your scene
Yeah.
in there. Another quick tip, actually, I can probably talk about while you're doing this is that if you go and select all your faces, right? So I'm just going to move everything out here. If you select them, go to polygon, there
Yeah.
actually is a layout option. If you click layout, it will try to place everything for you in your map.
Hmm.
One of the issues with this is that it will remove everything that was overlapped. So see right now, all of my faces are no longer overlapped, which means I'm going to have to paint everything individually. And the second issue with the automatic unfold is that they're not going to keep all of these similar materials next to each other necessarily. In this case, they did, right? So we actually have the metal all at the bottom left. But sometime you'll have one at the top, one at the bottom. Like they'll be all over the place depending on how the algorithm detected it. The algorithm doesn't know what material they're going to be painted yet, right?
Yep.
So letting the computer do it sometime will not be the best. And when it comes to padding, you actually have some options in the unfold options. So you can actually decide room space here. So right now by default it had 8 pixels at the map size of 1024. But I mean, it's entirely up to you. You can alter that. So anyways, it's just another option on how to get to your final result, depending on the situation. We've used the automatic mapping in certain circumstances, but again, it won't apply in every circumstance.
Yeah, I much rather do it myself so I understand and know my prop from inside out, right?
Oh, well, exactly. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
completely agree. Some of the ideas that I'm talking about is that when we did some of the bigger levels, the automatic unwrap just made more sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so for some of the games that we worked on, but yeah, individual props, I don't think I'd ever use that for individual props.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Um, Actually, that's not completely true. I might do that again, depending on the simplicity of the prop. I might do it this way if I'm going to be doing the painting in like Substance Painter.
Yeah, well, it's trying to understand what your prop, what you're doing is, if it's a character, if it's multiple props, you want to think about what is going to be the output. If you're going to use Photoshop for most of your texturing, then yeah, you need to do it this way and make sure that
Absolutely.
you understand your prop. But if you can use Substance Painter or 3D Code or anything that you don't necessarily have to think about your UVs, then yeah, an auto unwrap can do the job.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, great point. It's always about the output. Everything we do, we're trying to think about the output and how it's going to work, right?
Yep.
All right, nice. Okay, so look, I think you're almost done setting everything up here,
Yeah.
which is really nice because you're actually making sure everything overlaps perfectly by selecting the vertices and then holding V and making them snap to the other
Yep.
vertices that already exist.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna go on and show the next step. So I'm gonna show the Photoshop network way, and then if you want, you can actually show them how to create a UV snapshot.
Yeah. Sure.
Cool.
Yeah. Go ahead and show that, and I'll prepare the rest of my scene.
Cool. So to create a PSD network, the first thing you're going to do is select the object. You have to make sure that you're in object mode. If you select the faces, it's not going to work, right? So select the object, go to image, create PSD network. And inside of here, you're going to select where you want to save it. So I'm just going to go in, save it on my desktop here. Sorry, I'm going back and forth between the two. And save it as whatever, my create texture. Click save. Select the size, so I'm going to leave it at 2048 by 2048. And see, oh, I forgot to mention this, and I'm sure we all do this every now and again, is that if your crate has the default Lambert 1, you're going to be creating a PSD network on Lambert 1, which means every new asset you're going to create is going to be using your crate texture. So before actually creating the PSD network, I highly recommend you right click and assign your new material first. Because that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, Lambert one is sometimes forget, and you don't know why everything's sort of red or whatever color positioned it to. So yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, I know that creating assets and then using the Lambert 1 can be a major pain in the ass because Ben has told me I've done it so many times.
No.
No. Okay, so Lambert 3 now, we're good. I'm going to select color, and then I'm going to move it into selected attributes. So for now, we're just going to use a color map. But if you wanted to add a transparency map, incandescence, bump, ambient, diffuse, whatever you wanted, you just grab it and move it to the right into the selected attributes. So right now, if I just use color and click create, right, then I'll be able to go into my Photoshop and actually open up the PSD network. Okay, sorry. So I just realized that when I did the PSD network, I didn't actually select where I wanted to save it. All right, so make sure when you save it, you select the little folder over here and then save it in the appropriate folder. All right, so back inside Photoshop, what I really like about the PSD network is that it'll actually create a folder structure for you inside of Photoshop. So you see that the UVs are apart, and then you have the Lambert3.color folder. So everything you put inside of this folder will appear on your texture, but everything that's not in there simply won't appear, right? So I'm just gonna draw a beautiful texture here because I love you guys. And if you click save, right, so Control S, and then go back to your Maya, you're gonna see that automatically it's reloaded if you turn on your textures inside your scene. And there you go. So now I have a beautiful heart on the side of my crate. And as I keep adding stuff, and like I said, you can add as many layers as you want inside of the Lambert 3 color, and it's going to appear in there. So now I'm just going to do one side blue here. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Again, Control S, all right, so Control S, and then automatically should appear. And voila.
Nice.
If you're having, so I realized that because of the Photoshop format and Maya, you might have differences in color versus your Maya scene and what you're seeing in Photoshop. So there are two ways of fixing this. When you're actually saving your Photoshop file, make sure that you're using the ICC profile sRGB, right? And this should technically work and update the color palette so that it actually looks more like what you're painting. But if it doesn't, what you can do is actually alter it here. So sRGB gamma, you can actually change it to raw, and make sure that you remove the lighting information. So if you go to lighting, use the flat lighting. All right. So as you can see, this is looking very flat right now, but at least I'm going to be seeing exactly what I'm painting in Photoshop. So this is going to be an exact replica at this point. All right. So
yeah,
right,
flat lighting is always nice, especially for hand-painted texture. It's probably your best friend.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, because then you're seeing some highlights when you're using the light information that if you're going to be using it, for example, some of the games that we make actually doesn't have any lighting. Everything is faked. So especially for mobile games, so we're going to be hand painting those shine, right? Like those glares, that speck map, right? Essentially, we're faking that in the hand painted textures. So if you're actually using lights in your Maya scene, then you're not going to be seeing exactly what the end player is going to be seeing. So again, using the flat lighting will just be that much cleaner for you when you're doing basic colored textures. All right, I see you're still struggling with your UVs there. You've had some issues, huh?
Yeah, the UVs for some reason when I'm doing unfold, they're not doing a good unfold.
Oh,
So
that's very rude of them.
I have to go over them and redo them a lot. So
Okay. Well, then I'm just going to quickly show the alternative here. So if, for example, you wanted to add something else to this scene, like, okay, I'm going to add a knob to this chest here. So beautiful, big knob right on top because it's a safe now. Then, you know, I'm not going to need these faces, right? They're going to be never seen. They're at the bottom. These I'm going to see and the top here. So I'm just going to move it here for now. And now I want to make sure that they're part of this crate UVs. So what I did is I just selected the first one, then shift select the crate. I'm going to go to face mode. I'm going to select all of the cylinder faces. I'm going to shrink it down. I'll actually rotate it 90 degrees by using this icon up here. Again, in the new version of Maya 2017, it'll be on the right side. You might have to play around with it. And see, now I can add my new knob right here on my image. But when I go back to Photoshop, I'm not actually going to see it in here. So what you can do is, if you go back to image, inside of polygons, you can actually go UV snapshot. So if you go to UV snapshot, then you'll be able to save just that image. All right, so I'm just going to go and save it on my desktop. I'll call this new crate UVs. Save 2048 by 2048. Of course, you have to use the same resolution or else it won't match up. Click OK. Oh, sorry. It will not work once again if you don't do it in object mode. Okay, so when you actually open up your new crate UVs, so I'm going to actually press Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and then I'm going to go back into my PSD network and Control V, but outside of the folder. So now I'm going to have my new set of UVs in here, outside of my folder. And if you wanted to appear brighter, what you can do is actually change the layer style. So I'm going to use, I don't know, screen or color dodge. Yeah, color dodge looks pretty good. It's actually popping out pretty nice. So now at least I know where my new knob is, and now if I want to, I can actually go paint the knob. But again, if you press Control S, we're not going to see the UVs on it. And if I actually assign the existing material number 3 to my knob, now we're going to be seeing it here. Right? Because of course if I just select my crate, I'm not going to see the UVs for the knob, right? But both are going to be using Lambert 3, and now I can actually see all of the UVs all on one map. And that's a really beautiful crate.
It's a very pretty crate. It's a very pretty crate.
It looks like a 90s graph crate. Maybe from TMNT or something. It's just, I know what it is. It's a box filled with TMNT ooze.
That's exactly why you're being hired.
Thank you, buddy. Wow. Okay. Well, you know what? I think we've covered the planar mapping pretty much in depth here. The only other two really is that if you're going to create an object that would be more cylindrical, then instead of using the UV planar, you'd use the UV cylindrical, right? And then you can just, when you open it up, you're going to see that it's being stretched out here. But then grabbing the red box here, you can actually pull it in, right?
Yep.
To go all the way around, which is going to look good for the sides, but then the top are messed up. So again, just grabbing the top faces and bottom faces, I would just do a simple UV planar
from the Y axis. Yeah.
Right. Move that.
Very, very simple.
Yeah, so the cylindrical, is very, very basic. The other tools that exist, like you said earlier, is the automatic unwrap. Again, we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but just clicking automatic will actually unwrap the entire crate for you. Again, it's going to be a huge mess. Everything is on their own and individual. So, you'd have to go back in and try and clean everything up. But then again, it might be a time saver depending on the situation and what the object is and what the output is. So it's always something to consider.
Yeah, sometimes the automatic unwrap does a pretty good job, and you just have to tweak it just a bit. But most of the time, it's you're gonna have to do some tweaks and do it by yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then the final one would be for more organic shapes. So I'm just gonna create this awesome blob thingamajig.
That's very pretty.
Thank you. And that's why we work great together. We always complement each other. Okay, so again, a more organic shape, it could be a monster, a creature, a character. I mean, like anything that would be a little bit more complex, right? So you would start by creating a simple planar mapping. I would do this one along the Z-axis to get the majority of it. And then it would be about trying to find the natural edges, right? The natural seams of the object. So in this case, I would select like this edge here that runs all the way across. And then going to, I think it's in polygons here.
Polygons, right at the bottom, cut UV edge.
Yeah. Oh, I always use split UVs, but I think it's the same thing, right?
It's exactly the same thing. I just use cut UV edge.
Yeah, I guess it's the first one we used that realized it worked, and we were like, all right, cool, I'm gonna use that one. So once you have that, we can try unfolding it at this point, but I think it won't work properly because we're trying to think of this as being a cloth and trying to make it flat on the ground, right? So if we had this piece of cloth here, it would be very difficult for it to unfold flat on the ground, right? So you'd have to add at least another edge, maybe around this one.
Yeah, for edges for like that, you need to think about what is the main thing that you're going to see on screen to sort of think ahead of like where the seam is going to be. So because if you don't necessarily want to see the seam, you can try to think of where you're going to cut. It's going to be sort of hidden to the camera.
Exactly. So one of the tricks I give is that if you're going to when you're doing a character, for example, you want to be following the seams on the clothes.
Yep.
Right. And then the final step is just going to polygon, unfold, and then it's going to unfold your pieces. So see, we're seeing that these two halves or quarters worked really good, whereas this one, it really had to stretch things out in order to try and make it work properly. So if we're looking at the squares, we're going to see that in here. So the one that was done all as one, there's a lot of stretching, whereas the other one is looking much cleaner.
Yep.
All right. I think that's it. Would you have any last minute tip?
No.
I
Not
think that
really. I
covers
think
pretty
we've
much
covered
everything
pretty
up,
much.
right?
Yeah, it's pretty much everything. I mean, the main thing about UV unwrapping is not necessarily the technique that you use. Yes, like I mean, there's multiple ways of doing it, but the main thing that you need to think about is your actual object. Like, what is going to be the main piece that we're going to see on screen? That it will require a bigger real estate within the UV square that we have. So you need to think about every step of the way that what you're doing and why you want to cut it there, and is there a way for me, like for the metal bars that we have on the crate, well, they could go over top each other and just use one texture for the two bars
Yep.
instead of having to paint two. But sometime, depending on the crate, if we're seeing that crate up close, then yes, we want to split them because we want to have something different for each one, so we don't see the texture being repeated.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a great point, right? So that's what we've been saying all along. It's always about the output, where you're going to be
Yep.
using it, and where it's going to be seen.
Yep.
And then based on that, you're going to define if you're going to overlap some of the pieces and just paint once, or if you need everything to be individualized, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Hey, well, thank you very much, man. I think that was very cool. And I'll see you around.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.